780 volunteers. Uh, so for example, I went from home to Sam's Club, and it gives you this is as a shopping trip. So if I click on it, it says it went to land use is commercial. So what happened? How is this trips designed? We have land use data from city. The land use data has been divided into 200 by 200 meter grids throughout the metro area. Now the trip has been matched to the respective land use there. If it's Sam's Club, mostly it is commercial. However, if someone is staying at Sam's Club for 7 hours, he or she is working at that place. If someone is going into Sam's Club and coming in half an hour, that is a commercial trip. So that's how the algorithm has been written, and it's broken down in such a way. Now, is this possible in big metros? Any metro below 200,000 can use this equation because your land use is not that clustered. However, when you go to bigger metros, you are at block to block level, but you have more land uses within a block. So it's hard to designate what's the land use purpose there. So that's one thing we had when the feds asked us saying, can we use for other metros more than 200,000? The answer is no, but anything below 200,000, the answer is yes, we can use it. Now, once that is all done, all these trips are being, then within the process, we also want to know where people are going and why are they going there. For example, we mapped all the shopping centers in the area, points of interest, coffee shops, sports, anything, and your bus routes, where are the routes going right now, and so on and so forth. Once it's all designed, it's been converted into origin destination matrix. In transportation, origin destination matrix are the basic information that any transportation model or analysis needs. So for example, all this is divided into transportation analysis zones, and if you click on a zone, by time of day, it'll give you where the trips came from and what type of trips came from and where did they go. So it'll give you inbound, outbound, and also will give you the type of trips like home-based work, home-based other, so on and so forth. Why is this important? If you know that most of the trips that are happening are like pass-through trips, someone is coming from their office, picking their kid from a daycare, it's a daycare trip. Now, can we use transit for that? No, we can't, because how many daycares are there in the area which we connect with transit system? So those trips we need to avoid. But let's say if someone is coming from office to Hy-Vee, it's a shopping trip. So they're shopping there and they're going back to home. So can we connect a route so that it connects to Hy-Vee? The answer is yes. So those are the kind of analytics that went into the process as we looked into, and it's broken down by weekly and by weekend. And at the end, the biggest thing what we got out of this is corridor speeds. When we do traffic engineering, when we do traffic studies, when we do accident studies, anything, or emission, any analysis, you need to know what's the real speed on the corridor. Right now in Dubuque, we covered every corridor. So if you click on a corridor by link, you'll know what speeds people are traveling by time of day. So during peak times, they might go at +5. Off peak, they might go +7, so on and so forth. You know exactly, basing on this, you can adjust your transit trips, but also you can adjust your signal systems by corridor speeds. And then the last one shows like how is the distribution of the survey done in the area. So it's done by minority, housing, and household size, and income level. So sorry, this is not loading. Okay. So that's how the portal is all designed. The problem with the portal is we try to make it public and keep it online. However, we had 780 volunteers' personal information, so we can't do that because we didn't have approval from them to use it as a public website. So that's why it's still a private portal for city staff and DMAT staff. So once that information is all obtained, then IBM did an optimization process. The optimization process took the attractions, the speeds, and how much Joule system has how many buses, and what's their operating cost. The bottom line is they want to keep the operating cost the same, and they design the routes. But here is the catch. When IBM designed the routes, it's designed by a machine. It's not designed by like a person who is on the field. For example, when Candice looks at the system, she knows ins and out of the system. However, someone is sitting in New York, he or she won't know much about it. So what we got is a machine code. So what we took is we took that data and started working with Joule to clean it up and come up with routes that Joule can implement and make the system more efficient. So this is what, this is what IBM gave, and then we worked with Joule system to come up with some improvements. Now, Candice will explain how she's using this data.
All right. So Chandra showed you guys some of what we've looked at so far. And what we're doing when we look at that is looking at our current ridership and then where this potential future usage might be or what the trends might be for them. And then we're also looking back at what we did in 2014. So we made a big change in 2014 that I think most people remember. It was a big deal. It increased our ridership by quite a bit, and that was mostly based on all of our data that we gather on our current riders. And then we saw ourselves picking up some extra people along the way, and this takes us to the next level, basically. We actually have real data to boost what we have going on out there and look at what we're doing and really try to reach out to those different groups. So what we're doing is looking at what IBM puts together, and some things we know here because if you live in Dubuque, you know what the topography looks like. It's not flat. If they're in New York, sometimes they don't know that 29th Street's not a good place to put a bus. So it's not a hill you want to use with a giant vehicle. So there's some things that we're looking at with local knowledge and just kind of saying that's probably not a good place for a bus, but maybe this one might be a better spot, and it's still going to give us the same travel pattern or ability to reach the same types of people. So we're looking at a lot of that with the routes that they created, looking at our high demand stops and then the high demand areas that they're finding with the data, and then also keeping in mind that we have customers we serve now and people who use the bus heavily, and we don't want to negatively impact them by taking a shot at maybe a new area that has questionable ability for increasing ridership. We don't want to hurt people who are using it now just for the chance to get other people to use it. So we're trying to balance that. It's definitely difficult to see the opportunity in one place, but also not want to negatively impact someone who's using it. So we're doing that as we look at the data, and then we're also comparing our existing routes with what IBM is coming up with. We're seeing a lot of overlap, which is really good, but we're seeing some opportunities as well. We've sat down with Dan Fox from ECI and mapped out a few different possible options that we could look at in the future. And then we're also internally looking at some of the things that we're seeing with their data and how we could look at off-peak times and off-peak travel with our daytime routes, and then Saturdays as well. Areas where people don't necessarily go on a Saturday, but they do go on a weekday. Maybe Saturday can be combined together with a couple of routes to save some money and then move that elsewhere. So we're looking at a lot of different things with this to try to make changes that don't add to our costs. So those are some areas we're looking at for combining things. And then we're also looking at, when we get data from IBM, it's a map, and so we have to construct a schedule of what that might look like for our passengers and what the times might look like, and do those times actually work out. So we're looking at a lot of that with, there are intersections in town that we know how long it takes to get through, and the mapping software, the computer, the machine putting these routes together doesn't necessarily know, oh, this intersection takes a little bit longer or that one's a little bit faster, and so we're timing a lot of that out ourselves and putting those schedules together. And also keeping in mind, what bus stop locations are heavily used, which ones we have that are fully ADA compliant, and then trying to keep, high demand bus stops that are already ready to go in place without making too many changes that are going to impact, again, people and then the infrastructure we have in place. We're starting to work with our Transit Advisory Board and looking at some of those routes. We're looking at a few routes each month, pretty much through the budget process, and then we'll bring some things to you all in probably the next few months based on their recommendations and changes that they have. And then, again, our goal here is to find cost savings in the existing routes that we can fund proposed changes with. So hopefully not having a net gain or net increase in cost, but still being able to serve new people and serve our existing people better.
Any questions?
Okay, any questions on the presentation? Okay, well, thank you all very much for that update. Very interesting work that you do just to create bus routes, transit routes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the motion is to receive and file. Kevin, would you call the roll, please?
Jones.
Aye.
Resnick.
Aye.
Rios.
Aye.
Del Toro.
Aye.
Lynch.
Aye.
Connors.
Aye.
Buell.
Aye, that motion carries 7-0.
Action item number 2 is the comprehensive plan draft communications engagement plan.
Mr. Mayor,
Ms. Connors.
move to receive and file and approve the recommendation and listen to a presentation.
Second.
By Ms. Connors, second by Mr. Del Toro. Mike, please.
Thank you. Creation of the 2017 City of Dubuque Comprehensive Plan with input from diverse community members requires an innovative and inclusive community engagement process that reaches out to a broad audience through a variety of methods. The draft communications engagement plan outlines such a process. The draft communications engagement plan for the 2017 City Dubuque Comprehensive Plan was developed by Teska and Associates with the input of city staff. Teska and Associates is the selected consultant to develop a new comprehensive plan for Dubuque. Planning Services Manager Laura Carstens recommends City Council approval of the Communications Engagement Plan for the 2017 City Dubuque Comprehensive Plan. I concur with the recommendation and respectfully request Mayor and City Council approval, and Laura has a presentation on the plan.
Thank you, Mike.
Thanks, Mike, for that introduction. I'm Laura Carstens. I'm the Planning Services Manager. So, as Mike indicated, this is an overview of the draft communication and engagement plan for the 2017 Comprehensive Plan. It was developed in conjunction with our consultant, Teska & Associates. Before I get started on the presentation, I do want to introduce the two key staff from the Planning Services Department who are going to be involved in this project. For the City of Dubuque, working with the consultant's project manager. You guys stand up? Can you join me up here? It's my turn to embarrass them today. Assistant Planner Dave Johnson, he will be the project manager for the 2017 Comprehensive Plan. Planning Technician Osei Akilotan will be the assistant project manager. And they're here to answer the hard questions. They're my backup. Thank you.
Thank you.
I thought first for, not only for the council, but for our viewers and members who are with us in the council chambers, I just review what a comprehensive plan is. If you're planners like us, it's something you talk about a lot, but we want to just share some simple ideas about it and begin to help market the idea of what is a plan to the community so we can get that broad participation. Really, we look at it as a roadmap. It's a guide, particularly for this example, the future land use map of how land is used today and how it would be used into the future. The plan also has text to it. It has goals that the community wants to reach. So why should residents care about it? We feel it's time, and you were gracious enough to provide us with the funding, to really create a comprehensive plan with imagination, with ideas and input from everyone in our community. Because input is critical for us to develop a comprehensive plan and a community vision. The plan is intended to reflect that consensus of community values. It's also to guide policies and decision-making in tune with that shared vision for future growth and development of our community. And it becomes a plan that helps us reach a viable, livable, and equitable Dubuque. Implementation also gives us a common reference with individuals, businesses, boards, commissions, organizations, and council members for new programs, revisions, updates, or expansions of projects or partnerships, and how we budget. You're assisted in this with with help from the Long Range Planning Advisory Commission. I think the City of Dubuque is the only city in the state of Iowa with a separate planning commission. And so that commission has a major role with this comprehensive plan. They're in charge of preparing it and bringing it to you. They're also been very involved with the community engagement process that we're going to talk about. The Planning Commission has worked on a new framework, although we're still looking at direction for the future for growth and redevelopment and development. The plan has been linked to the Sustainable Dubuque model and resiliency, in particular because it incorporates some of Iowa's smart planning principles. Oops, I think I missed one there. Oh. The Planning Commission also developed a new community engagement process that you looked at and improved in 2014. This was a new framework to involve people who are typically or traditionally have been underrepresented when we've worked on past updates of the comprehensive plan. The communication and engagement plan that Teskin Associates has provided us acknowledges that effort and builds on it. The goal is to make the plan interesting to the community, providing context so that we can extend the conversation and create personal ownership in the plan. The components of this communication and engagement plan are intended to work together to build on past plans and generate new ideas and create that shared vision that's relevant for our community. We hope that this will ensure that concerns of the public and aspirations are consistently understood and considered throughout the planning process. So the draft communication and engagement plan from TESCA outlines steps that would be taken by that consultant team and city staff to create our new comprehensive plan. As Mike mentioned, we want to do this with diverse community groups and with an innovative and inclusive community engagement process to reach out to a broad audience through a variety of ways and means. It's very important that we meet people where they are and not consistently force them to come to us. There are three components that are described in this plan: communication tools, communication events, and communication partners, and I'll go through those briefly for you. Sound, open, and ongoing public engagement is essential for the plan to reflect local needs and desires. The public engagement program considers that people have different preferences for how they want to share their concerns or air their ideas. So this plan includes traditional methods as well as 21st century technology, from newsletter articles and posters to an idea chalkboard and takeaway kits to a website and a mobile app. The variety of methods are intended to cater to diverse segments of our community: residents, neighborhoods, commercial property owners, business owners, stakeholders, and a variety of cultural groups. The consultant has set up a feedback core group. It consists of the technical team, which is city staff and some key stakeholders, the leadership team, which is our city management team, working groups that I'll talk about in a minute, the Planning Commission, and the City Council. This would be the core groups for review and information sharing for the comprehensive plan. Our work groups are built around STAR for the goal areas. Sustainability tools for assessing and rating communities is the measurement we're using for performance, measurement for sustainability, and this forms a good basis for the working groups and content for the plan. We'll be pulling people into these categories, working with them throughout the process to help share their perspectives and build our outreach into the community. In addition, we have events that are geared directly to the public or will be at public meetings such as this. We're going to be reaching out with our consultant team with interviews and dialogue, community input sessions, workshops, presence at community events, and other types of group outreach. We also have 4 quarterly meetings to check in with the council and the Planning Commission over the course of the project. This is an intent to update you and the commission as to the progress and to also gain your perspectives on the work we've completed and where we're headed. We've tentatively looked at November, February, April, and July for those quarterly meetings at this point. We also will be using communication partners. These are organizations that have a capacity and an opportunity to help us raise awareness and direct people to information about the comprehensive plan and opportunities where they can participate. Partners such as Greater Dubuque Development Corporation, the Convention and Visitors Bureau, Dubuque Main Street, the Chamber of Commerce, the Labor Management Council are some of those groups, as well as many other sectors you see listed here that will help us to spread that word. Communication partners will also include neighborhood groups, community and civic groups, as well as collective impact initiatives like Inclusive Dubuque and Dubuque Works. In addition, communication partners with the schools, both public and private, and colleges and universities will extend our outreach to residents of different ages, cultural groups, building on the experience of our previous community engagement efforts as well. Throughout the planning process, as we move through this engagement effort, we will be monitoring it for success and making adjustments to make sure that we are being effective in meeting our community's needs. I'm going to briefly walk you through the schedule, and I'll just go month by month very quickly. In July of this year, the consultants reviewed the past plans and began work on some of those technology tools and also developed this draft plan. This month, they're planning to do interviews. They'll be confirmed at 2 events, the farmers market and all that jazz. And we'll also be touching base with the Planning Commission and a working group. In September, the focus shifts to economic and market assessment and existing land use. In October, we're looking at a focus on the past and present, looking to gather Dubuque stories, and also reaching out tentatively to the colleges. We'll mention that although there are only some of the months showing community events, it is our intent to continue to work through the calendar of events in this community and confirm specific events as we move along. In November, when we have an update scheduled with the City Council, with the focus then would be on developable land, infrastructure, hazard mitigation, and environmental and ecological integrity. In December, we'd begin work with the consultants on an overall vision and framework, again with the Planning Commission and some working groups. In 2017, we'll be looking at economic prosperity and touching base with our boards and commissions in January, then looking at future land use and multimodal transportation planning in February. Again, another touch back with the commission and council on how we're doing, and we have a community workshop slated for that. In March, we move on to places and neighborhoods. In April, community facilities is the focus. Again, another community workshop and touching update with the council and planning commission. In May, we're looking at urban design and placemaking as the focus. In June, social and cultural vibrancy. In July, we begin the draft plan preparation and implementation piece. Again, that's another update for you. In August, we'll really get into a serious plan review so that we will have in September the Planning Commission hold a public hearing, and then in October the council adopt the plan. The consultant is scheduled to get us the plan by the end of August. Again, another community workshop shown there in August, as well as the public hearing. As I mentioned, the 2017 comprehensive plan is one that requires an innovative, inclusive, and broad community engagement process. We believe the draft plan that Teske Associates has provided us outlines such a process. The planning staff recommends that the City Council adopt that plan. And again, we'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Well, thank you, Laura, for that that update. Certainly sounds like a very comprehensive plan to create a comprehensive plan. Certainly, looks like you've got plans to engage pretty much every section of every aspect of the community. So that's should be a very good plan. I look forward to participating in that process.
Thank you for your support.
Anyone have any questions, Ms. Resnick?
Thank you. You know, This engagement is so important. So there was a recent letter to the editor from a gentleman of the NAACP who was saying that the same people are always asked, and some people are left out, and so that's very difficult to really get the whole community involved. And we're always, Chandra was here talking about communication and talking and getting information. I'm just wondering if we could, if there's some way that we could find the best way and then use that way a lot. And we're always trying because it's so difficult. So maybe this way we'll do it. So I appreciate your efforts, and I hope that we can actually reach out to people who don't necessarily think their voices count, and let them know that they do. That's very important, So thank you very much for that. The STAR, I'm a little bit worried about that because the STAR communities is kind of new. One of the time we had a presentation and we got 1 star for our economic development out of 4 or 5. And it's like, you got to be kidding me. I mean, we've got the greatest, economic engine here in Dubuque in many ways. And so I'm a little reticent about the STAR. I understand the different categories. So if we use it for that, not to try to please that, but just as a starting point. So I don't know where that comes in. It looks like you have an excellent plan, and you mentioned that you're going to constantly go back and check to make sure we are engaging as many people as possible, right? Great.
Absolutely.
Well, thank
We
you.
spent probably 2 years looking at how to reach various groups, from the NAACP to the Hispanic community to a variety of other cultural groups within our community based on age and gender and nationality, ethnicity. And we are working with a consultant team who is very good at doing that same thing. By no means do either the city planning staff or the consultants feel we have all the answers, but we have lots of creative and innovative ideas that they've experienced in other communities that we want to bring to bear. Absolutely, we want to hear from everybody. Absolutely. We do want to consider STAR. It's a great measurement tool. It's a way to keep track of things. It helps us to be more data-driven and have information. It helps us to answer questions about where we're at if people are asking us, and to monitor trends. This plan is flexible, though, and if those categories aren't what we really need, we certainly are willing to work with our consultants and work certainly with the council on what aspects we want to touch on. We picked that because we knew we had data, we could share it, and we could track it. But we can certainly look at lots of things besides just those 7 categories.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, thank you very much, Laura.
Thank you
that
for your
update.
support.
The motion is to receive and file and approve the communications engagement plan for the 2017 City of Dubuque Comprehensive Plan. Kevin, would you call the roll, please?
Jones.
Aye.
Resnick.
Aye.
Rios.
Aye.
Del Toro.
Aye.
Lynch.
Aye.
Connors.
Aye.
Buell.
Aye. That motion carries 7-0.
Action item number 3 is the Bee Branch Watershed Flood Mitigation Project update.
Mr. Mayor,
Ms. Connors.
I move to receive and file and listen to a presentation.
Second.
By Ms. Connors, second by Mr. Del Toro. Darren, please.
Evening, Mayor and City Council members. I'm Darren Meering, a civil engineer with the Engineering Department. Thanks for affording me the opportunity to kind of provide an update on the Bee Branch Watershed Flood Mitigation Project. Obviously, with recent, flooding, citizens in late July kind of experienced or witnessed some of the same flooding issues that kind of basically have led to this watershed project, and so it only makes sense to kind of ask, well, where are we on the project and where are we going? And so that's why I'm here before you today. The first thing to point out is that, while the Bee Branch Creek Restoration Project is the most prominent, the most noteworthy, the largest of all the improvements, it is but one of many phases of a project where all the elements are shown here, and that all of these elements are important to addressing the flooding issues that we've seen over the last decade or so, and some of those that we saw just a few weeks ago. And so you can see the schedule. Some of these are going to take significant time to implement, but most of them are going to be done within the next 5 years. And at the same time, we have made progress, and we are realizing the benefits of some of these improvements. One of the things I want to point out, because it potentially has an impact on the schedule, and I say potentially just because we're still not there in the process yet. It's related to the HUD grant that was awarded to the state of Iowa and the city of Dubuque as a subrecipient. And what it does is it 3 of our projects that we had already identified in our watershed flood mitigation project, 3 of our phases essentially are going to be getting funding through this HUD program. And so it's going to have to fit on the schedule that goes with that grant funding. As of right now, before we can start kind of really getting to work on these improvements, there has to be an agreement between the federal government and the state level for the original award, and then we have to have an agreement in place with the state as a subrecipient. So we hope to resolve that sometime and have something in front of you in October, although right now it's a little bit out of our hands. But that's kind of the schedule, and so once that day hits, then those projects we have outlined in yellow here, we will hit really hard as far as starting to advance the design and move towards construction of these improvements. I don't list the Bee Branch Healthy Homes Resiliency Program as another $8.5 million or so. That's kind of on the housing side, where I'm mainly concentrating on the infrastructure side. But if when you do consider that as part of our overall flood mitigation project, it increased our total project cost to about $218 million. And then with the grant funding through HUD, actually our city share goes down while the scope of our projects are actually increasing. So that kind of makes it worth the slight delay in getting going on some of these improvements. So I'm just going to step through each one of these phases and just give a brief update on some of them and a little more detail on others on where we are and what we're doing. So West 32nd Street Detention Basin was completed in 2009, but as with any infrastructure project or public infrastructure, we need to maintain it and monitor it, make sure it's doing what we need it to do during a rainstorm. So just this spring, we had an assessment done to look into the growing, the plantings, the establishment of the prairie grasses and the wetlands. And then this report has to be sent back to the United States Army Corps of Engineers, who provided us the permit for us to construct this. And so one of the things that they found was that it has a wealth of a variety of the prairie grasses and wetland that they wanted to see. Minor maintenance as far as spot kind of control of some non-native invasive plants that we have to do this summer. And then, again, this fall, we were going to try to do it this spring, but in order to promote the growth of the wildflowers and the prairie grass and the wetland type plantings, you do a controlled burn. Again, we tried to do it this spring, but if you notice the difference in the 2 pictures there, in the burn, the grass is obviously very dry. You really can't burn a green grass, so that's why it has to be done in the spring before the rains and before the weather takes hold, or later in the fall. The Lower Bee Branch has been functional in terms of flood mitigation since 2011, but there's other things that we need to do with it. One of those is, again, maintaining the plantings that we have. We also assessed that this spring as far as how the plantings are coming along, and Applied Ecological Services did an assessment and basically concluded that it's an excellent example of a pollinator habitat in the city of Dubuque. So they were kind of glowing about this is what people want when they set about trying to grow prairie wetland grasses. Other improvements within the project is the overlook that's currently under construction. So this is to replace the Audubon overlook that was kind of built by the citizens for kind of bird watching and looking into the basin for the migratory birds. This just shows kind of what it looked like before we started construction, looking at 16th and Kerper towards City Island. So in May, that's what it looked like. You can see on the lower right where they're just trying to start to get out of the water with their construction. And that's what it looked like last week. So they've gotten out of the water, they got the roof on the pavilion there, and now that it's less dependent on the water and fighting that, they can pick up speed as far as completing that project. This just kind of looked like getting out of the ground in May, and this is what it looked like last week. The other thing that we have under development is the floating island. We'll be kind of preparing that design this fall, and this will be in place by the end of 2017 as well. The flood mitigation gate replacement project, so this is currently under design. This is related again to the kind of the flood levee system that we have, and where the Bee Branch watershed flows out of the city and into the Piasa Channel or the Mississippi River. So when the river is high, we have this gate structure that comes down and prevents the Mississippi from flooding parts of our city, and that's what this is for. So what we're looking at is replacing the gate, but also we asked IAW, the local engineers, to look at improvements to this system to help us kind of improve how that system works during different flood events. And so one of the things that we're looking at is preparing something to present to the council as an option going forward to kind of enhancing that design, and we hope to have that in front of you in the next few weeks for your consideration. Upper Bee Branch Creek Restoration, this is the major project obviously that's under construction to be completed by the end of next year. Just to remind people, it's essentially from kind of just south or of Garfield Avenue up to 24th Street and a little bit past 24th Street. There are 4 construction contracts that we have to build all of this right now. Just to kind of show where we are with each section. So this is if we were at Romberg and Neist looking towards Garfield, up top left what it's supposed to look like, and when we're done, and then bottom right where it is today. And just turning and looking at Romberg Bridge. The last time we reported to you, this wasn't open to traffic yet. This has been open now since mid-June. Looking upstream towards 22nd Street, you can see the amphitheater is taking shape on the right here. You can see the biofield infiltration basin is taking shape, 22nd Bridge. Getting up to closer to 22nd Street, looking up 22nd, so you can see the bridge taking shape. You can also see the spillway here. This is looking to the west up 22nd Street. I'll talk a little more about that in a little bit. And then this is the spillway where water in excess of the storm sewer will then leave the street and find it and get into basically the creek area to be passed out to the river. Looking at 22nd Street up to 24th. As you can see here, still a lot of work to do north of 22nd Street. Although you can see in the bottom right, the parking lot is starting to take shape. Essentially, we had to relocate the Heritage Trailhead parking as part of the project. We've actually expanded a little bit because of the needs of the neighborhood and off-street parking, but you can kind of see that starting to take shape there. And then at 24th Street, just looking at the outfall or where the water will exit the storm sewer and enter into the Daylighted Creek. You see how that's taking shape. So they've started the box culvert work now across 24th Street to then connect up to the existing Bee Branch sewer. So I'm just going to go over a little bit about the recent flooding and what's happened with our project. So this is an image showing the water that was in the section of the Upper Bee Branch from Garfield to Romberg Avenue. The main goal or purpose of the Bee Branch Creek Restoration Project is to convey or pass water through the area. And even though today it doesn't pass water the way it ultimately will, it's still providing obviously an area for a significant amount of storm water versus having it in the street or in people's basements. So this is the section between Romberg then and 22nd again on July, about noon on July. So one of the things to point out is just how much more storage volume was actually available. So that's, you know, it's about 8 or so more feet it could have ponded up before it would have spilled out. So there's a significant amount of additional storage that was still available for use. And that's important when we talk about making improvements and channeling more water there, that recognizing that that's what it's for. So just to put it in perspective, if the Bee Branch Creek restoration, if you're just looking at volume, it can hold about just under 19 million gallons of water, which is a lot of gallons of milk, I guess, but it's hard to picture what that is. Another way to look at it is it would be about a foot of water in 1,300 homes in this area. So just to show how even just this, what we have completed already is already providing a benefit